Hello, welcome to day 2 of the Academic Hive Research Bootcamp. For today, our focus will be on the research process. Here are some of what we'll be learning today. We'll get to learn about the research process. We'll also get to learn about types of research, how to conceptualize the research idea, and we'll see what comprises of every researcher's toolkit. As a researcher, what should you have handy with you? From our previous lecture, we found that research is a careful and detailed study into a specific problem, concern, or issue using the scientific method. We also got to see some skills that researchers should have, ranging from analytical skill, communication skill, presentation skill. I would also want to add emotional intelligence skill. Emotional intelligence is very necessary when you're striving for objectivity and when you're in your data collection phase, as well as your presentation and submission phase. Let's talk about the general scientific process or the general scientific model of the research process. From day 1 of the lecture as well, we saw that the general research process starts from the problem identification down to testing of hypotheses, selecting the appropriate research methods for your work, measuring them or defining measures, collecting data, analyzing the data, and generalizing them empirically. Here is how Academic Hive puts the research process. This is our 9-step model. We've tried this for several years and this has proven to be very effective. It's not very different from the general scientific research process, but there is a little tweak to this. Let's see. First, step 1 is the problem identification. Step 2, you review the literature. Step 3, you analyze the literature looking for gap. So that's what we call gap analysis. And then you develop your hypothesis. After those 3 steps, you go further to conceptualize your topic. And then you select an appropriate methodology, collect data, analyze the data, report your findings, and go ahead to present or publish your findings. We're going to take these steps, we're going to explain them step by step. Step 1, problem identification. For this step, you identify the problem. That's you try to get to know the issue or to understand the issue or the phenomenon you want to address. So possible sources of problems could be from your personal experiences or observations, what you've noticed around you, what you've experienced as a researcher. So it's similar to what we would like to call research or researcher's positionality. You also can find some problems from existing literature. While reviewing the literature of other people or other works, while reviewing other scholarly works, you can find a problem that they have not touched, which you would like to solve. Some of the sources too can be found from the limitation and recommendation for further studies, which is usually present in any scholarly work or in a good scholarly work. So every journal article, let me use a journal article for example, every research piece, say a journal article, is supposed to have some limitation. So the article or the manuscript should spell out what the limitation is. That is, what have they not covered? Or what would they recommend that future studies should cover, which they didn't cover? That could be a source of problem. That should give you an idea on what you can solve or a problem that is yet to be tackled. Step 2, you review your literature. This involves searching and reviewing the works done by other scholars. The truth is there's almost nothing new under the sun that hasn't been done. If you don't start with reviewing the literature, if you don't start with understanding what has been done, if you don't start with understanding what is being discussed around that topic you want to investigate, you only end up repeating the same process or reinventing the wheel. And of course, like we said in day one of our research, of the introduction to research class, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. Rather, you want to bring something new to the table. So you start out with reviewing literature because it's going to help you put your research into perspective. Once you're able to understand the discussion around that topic, it's as good as completing your research work by up to 50%, because you will know what you want to work on, and you'll be carrying out that research with this, you'll be carrying out that research with something in mind, with a direction in mind. You know where you're headed. So from the literature review, you would have figured out what the problem statement would be. You would have figured out how well you can contribute to this existing knowledge. You would have figured out the scope you would like your research to concentrate on. You also get to know the possible variables you'd want to work on and the methods you can adopt for your research. How are you able to come up with all this? Because you have reviewed the works done by others. Step 3. Analyze the literature. So while reviewing the literature, it's important for you to do what is called a critical review. The critical review of literature is aimed at identifying the gap, identifying the loophole that haven't been filled by other researchers. So once you've been able to identify the gap, it's also going to inform some assumptions you would make. So you get to see how other scholars, or what other scholars have concluded about a particular phenomenon or a particular topic or a particular research question. You see what they have concluded about it, and then you can make assumptions from there that you would like to either verify or disprove their own assumptions. And once you've made these assumptions, what you have done is that you have come up with hypotheses. Step 4. Topic conceptualization. So you have a problem in mind, you've gone ahead to review the literature, you've gone ahead to identify the gap that is existing or that are existing in existing literature. Now, you want to conceptualize your topic. That is, you want to have a topic in mind. So after the gap analysis, you try to come up with a topic in mind. This research topic should be concise. It should be brief, okay? Not too brief though, but it should be brief enough to contain the basic elements such that if someone reads your topic, they should be able to get a sense of what you want to research on. Not every topic, so this is a mistake that we usually make, especially it comes from what we learn during our undergrad, okay, about dependent variable and independent variable. You identify with this if you're into social research or even the social sciences. So not every topic must clearly specify a dependent and independent variable, unless of course if that topic sets out to examine relationship, or if it's a causal study. If your work is purely descriptive, or if your work is just to carry out a critical review, then your topic can be appealing, it should tell a story. It should sound really interesting. Something like, okay, let me use an example of a work I was working on with a professor in Australia. It had something to do with safety during COVID-19, aviation safety. So instead of saying the effects of aviation safety on passengers' perception, we just wanted to see what safety meant in aviation during the COVID. Before now, previously, safety had always been referred to, let's say, lack of theft, when the passengers' property is protected, or lack of terrorism at airports, or things like that. But with COVID, safety had taken on a new meaning. So we came up with a research topic that sounded like a story. What does aviation safety mean to you? An examination of passengers' perception of airport safety during COVID-19 pandemic. So you can see that it doesn't really, that topic is telling a story, okay? It doesn't really state a dependent variable or an independent variable. Although within the work, we have those things. We have this dependent variable and independent variable. Not to worry. When we get to data analysis, or when we get to talking about research methods, we'd understand what dependent variables and independent variables are. But the point is, your research topic should tell a story. It should just be interesting. It should be something that would move the reader to want to peer into your work, to see what you've really done. Step 5. Select an appropriate methodology. The key question here is that you want to ask yourself, how do I want to approach this research? During the methodology stage, you'll be deciding on the research paradigm. You'll be talking about the research philosophy you want to use. You also look at the different research approaches that you can use for your work. And then you can consider different research strategies and choices, okay? And the timing. Do you want to do a cross-sectional study? Do you want to do a longitudinal study? You also look at the techniques and the procedures that your research would adopt. So a lot of factors will be specific to your work. And those factors will be responsible for the methodology you choose. Here's a publication trick you may want to take note of. When you are submitting a manuscript to be published, especially if you're doing a primary study or maybe a secondary study or any other study, you would want to make sure that your manuscript contains all these elements. Your methodology section contains all these elements, that is the paradigm, the research philosophy, the approach, the strategies, the choices, timing, technique, and procedures. Once the reviewer is able to see that these things are present in your methodology section of your manuscript, then you stand a higher chance of getting accepted, okay? Your manuscript stands a higher chance of being accepted for publication. Apart from publication, even for your research project, even for your dissertation or your thesis you're working on, if you have these elements in place, although it differs with institutions, but if you have these elements in place, irrespective of the subheads under which they come in, if you have these elements in place, then your work will be desired by your supervisor or your reader. And it's going to be desired because it encourages what is called research reproducibility. That is, someone can pick up your work and reproduce the same thing, or can use your work and replicate it in another geographical area or in another context and add to your finding. Step 6, collect data. So for this step, you want to decide on the kind of data or information you need. Your data collection sources, are you looking at scholarly works? Are you looking at survey responses? Are you looking at observation, maybe experiments? Are you looking at pictures, figures? There are different kinds of data. Data simply means to information that will help you answer your research question. Information you need to examine or to analyze in such a way that you are able to provide answer to the research questions you have formulated already. Data is segmented into two basic types: qualitative data, which is non-numeric data, that is text, figures, whatever, so long as it's not numeric. And then quantitative data, which is numeric data, so long as, even if it's a survey you undertook and then you transcribe this survey to numbers. You're going to see all of this when we get to data analysis process. But what you want to know is that quantitative data stands for data that are numeric in form, and qualitative data is for data that are non-numeric. The non-numeric data can comprise of text, it can comprise of literature, it can comprise of images. Yes, people analyze images. It will be interesting to know. You can Google that and see. Step 7 is the data analysis stage. So at this stage, you analyze your data objectively and critically. What are you looking for when you are analyzing this data objectively? You want to examine the patterns. You want to see the outcome of the data. So if you have collected data, you now analyze it. You're analyzing it to see what will the outcome be, or what is the pattern in this data. Is there something about this data? Is there some kind of pattern it takes, or some kind of shape, or some kind of outcome it gives? Once you've been able to identify this outcome or this pattern, it helps you to draw conclusion for your work, and then you can make recommendation based on the conclusion you draw from the data analysis stage. After analyzing the data, what next? Report your finding. So here, if you want to report your finding in academic research, you're not just telling this finding verbally. Even if you have to present it verbally, you'll notice that some journals will ask you for abstract or things like that. So all the various elements we've already discussed from step 1 to 7, you try to put it together as a research piece. So at this stage, you need to have what is called storytelling skills, and put it in a logical flow, so that your audience or your reader can understand where you're coming from, okay? What your introduction is like. You take us into the background of the work, what other people have done, what they didn't do, how you want to address the gap you identified, that is the method, how you were able to collect data to address that gap, and then what you've been able to find. So it should follow a logical flow. Your report writing or your research report should follow a logical flow, and you will need to have or incorporate some storytelling skill at this stage. Most times it's best to start from the generic to the specific, especially in your introduction writing stage. So when you're writing your introduction, start by telling us generally about the issue, and then limit it to the specific. You will see how to write that in day 3 session, when we're talking about writing your problem statement or writing the research background. What's more, make sure that you write your research in clear, simple language. It's very nice to have some flowery terms, okay, when you're writing. Storytelling would encourage, or storytellers or storytelling writers would encourage you to bring in flowery terms, bring in very sophisticated words to make it look like you know what you're doing. Yes, it's good to bring that in once in a while when you're writing your research. But please, it's very effective when you try to stay as simple and as clear as possible. After writing your research or putting the research report together, share this finding, present it, or publish it. Academic Hive would strongly encourage you to share your research finding through various means. It could be through a Viva or a project defense. It could be through conferences. It could be through journal publication. It could be through websites, okay, or even your social media handle. Not to worry, I would also get to show you how you can publish or you can present your finding using social media. There are some social media that are specific to researchers.